The Mueller probe now focusing on Roger Stone, the longtime advisor to Donald Trump and self-proclaimed political dirty trickster, those his own words. Prosecutors, they are looking into Stone's possible connection to Wikileaks and to Steve Bannon, who was chief executive of the Trump campaign, then senior advisor to the president. Now, all of this involves Wikileaks. In 2016, hackers, they got into Clinton's campaign chairman's John Podesta's account, and they also hacked into the DNC. Now, right after that, candidate Trump said the following.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
Now, here is what Stone and Bannon, this is how they fit in. The Times got its hands on emails between the two and also messages from Stone to Breitbart editor Matthew Boyle. Here, just a few of them. Boyle to Stone. Assange, what's he got? Hope it's good. Stone responds, it is. I tell Bannon, but he doesn't call me back. Boyle emails. Bannon goes on to say, you should call Roger. You didn't get that from me. Bannon responds, I've got important stuff to worry about. Then Boyle tells Bannon, well, clearly he knows what Assange has. I'd say that is important. Now, the very next day, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange announced that he has quite significant material about the election to release. Now, right after that, Bannon emailed Stone about WikiLeaks and, quote, he said, what was that this morning? Stone responded that Assange was worried about his safety, but also had something, quote, very serious security concerns as well. He thinks they're going to kill him and that the London police are standing down. However, a load every week going forward. Bannon emails back, he didn't cut a deal with the Clintons, ? Well, we now know that Russian intelligence did in fact the hacking in question. What we don't know is whether or not Roger Stone was lying to Bannon when he said he was plugged into WikiLeaks, or was Stone lying when he repeatedly denied that he was plugged into WikiLeaks and knew what they had and when they would release it. Well, helping us untangle this mess is a good friend to the program here, Roland Riopel. A whole bunch of questions, and including whether or not Donald Trump may have even been subpoenaed. We'll get to that in a second. But Roland, let's get into Stone, because there seems to be two different theories. Not whether or not the emails were hacked, not whether or not the Russians did it, but whether Stone was bluffing here that he was really in the loop, or in fact he was, connected the Trump campaign into it, and now we're into the world of collusion. How do you read the email thread, and more, not just what I read, but more that's connected to it, and where do you put Stone at the nexus of this?
Well, Richard, I think what's happening here is Stone is trying to float the only defense he can think of at this point, and it's, in my mind, a very weak one, which is, I didn't really know what I said I knew. I was lying about that just to impress the campaign and puff up my importance. The timing of it all, with him having these conversations with Bannon shortly before WikiLeaks actually does leak the material, is so suspicious that it's hard to believe that Roger Stone didn't really know what he claimed to know when he made those statements to Bannon and others. I don't buy the defense that Stone is trying to float out there, that he was really just exaggerating and puffing and blowing himself up. I think he did know this stuff. I think Mueller knows about it. And so he is the conduit between the Russians and their agent WikiLeaks and the Trump campaign. He is the linchpin.
Go through the dominoes. Let's say hypothetically Stone is indicted here. What would happen next theoretically?
Well, one of two things can happen when Roger Stone is indicted. He either decides to fight it to the end and go to trial the way Paul Manafort did and take his chances. I think those chances are no better than Manafort's, and very likely he's convicted and very likely goes to jail for a while. Or he could plead guilty and either plead guilty and throw himself on the mercy of the court and hope for a short sentence, or plead guilty and cooperate against others, including I presume, Bannon and anyone else he communicated with in the Trump campaign.
That leads me to the question about Donald himself. And there's a lot of rumbling going on at the federal courthouse down in Virginia that there may be a subpoena being prepared, if not even served, to Donald Trump. I know you've read the tea leaves here. What's going on, and what do you think? Where are we with this right now?
It does appear to me that the litigation that is under seal in the federal court down in Virginia is likely to involve a subpoena served on Donald Trump to compel his testimony in the grand jury. And I say that, Richard, for a number of reasons. First of all, the fact that all the litigation is under seal, that is typical of litigation around grand jury proceedings. Grand jury proceedings are required to be kept secret under law, and so if there's fighting about it, it's typically done under seal, so it's not available to the public. Now, if this was a subpoena served on Jared or Donald Jr. or Roger Stone, any one of them could resist the subpoena simply by taking the Fifth Amendment and refusing to testify. All American citizens have that right, and they could certainly assert it in this case. The person who is fighting this subpoena is not asserting that right. He wants to fight it on some other grounds. The only person in this scenario that I can think of who wouldn't want to take the Fifth Amendment would be the president himself, because of the political damage that would do. The president also has arguments about the subpoena that mere officials or people like Stone and Donald Jr. and the rest don't have. The fact that it's a subpoena served on the head of the executive department itself, in this case Donald Trump, gives him all kinds of arguments about separation of powers and things like that that he can make with a straight face.
So let's say you connected the dots right, Roland, and Tuesday's significant, obviously, with all the midterms, but once the midterms are passed and that Justice Department protocol that you're not going to release anything, obviously, with an upcoming election, with that in the rearview mirror, do you expect after Tuesday, in pretty rapid action here, we could have major developments in the probe, if not even more daylight here related to this subpoena?
I do think, Richard, we will start to see much more of the Mueller probe and what Mueller has been up to over the last month and a half or so revealed right after Election Day. I think that for several reasons. First, I think there's a real concern on the part of Mueller and Rosenstein that Trump will take action immediately after the election to try to choke off the investigation. I also think that's why he probably did serve the subpoena, if he did, on Donald Trump before the election, so that is in the process, it is already served, and his investigation can't be choked off before that subpoena is finally litigated. We're now in the middle of that litigation, I believe.
As if the stakes weren't high enough in the midterms, just look what might happen in the immediate aftermath. Roland, as always, thank you so much for the time.
A real pleasure to be here, Richard.
All right, coming up next, we're going to switch gears. Dominic, he sits down with Jim McGreevey. That's right, the former New Jersey governor has had a really fascinating second act to his life. He's spending his professional life here and personal on dealing with the vulnerable populations who need help but are often overlooked by the government. A fascinating one-on-one straight ahead.